This week on Entrepreneurs, we are focusing on how to scale a business to 8 figures and beyond. I'm Jack Delosa, and Entrepreneurs starts now.
This is Entrepreneurs.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs. Tonight we conclude our 3-part special on building a business that can scale. Returning to the panel are 2 growth experts, Tanya Titman and Jason Andrew, along with our special guest, Justin Dry, founder of Vino Mofo. We're going to open with Jason, who spoke to us last week about getting the numbers right. Jason has just published a book on this topic for entrepreneurs called Stark Naked Numbers. This evening we'll be talking to him about how to scale responsibly. Jason, welcome back to Entrepreneurs.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Talk to us about the common growth patterns you see, particularly in the SME market.
So what we find generally is an SME gets to a stage where they might be doing $1 or $2 million of revenue, they've got a strong team in place, and the founder is still the key decision maker. The decision comes for them is whether they want to be bigger, right? And so what we challenge them is, like, you want to go for growth. What does growth look like to you? Is that growth in profits? Is it growth in revenue? Is it team size? And so I think a lot of people just need to understand what their objectives are and build a strategy around that. We
spoke last week about vanity metrics. Is it growth in revenue, growth in team size, growth in profit? I mean, do you encourage business owners to look at the bottom line and, you know, focus on take-home income at the end of the day?
Well, it really depends on the company, right?
Yeah.
So we work with a lot of startups, like traditional tech startups, and they've taken money from investors, and there's immediately, when you've taken someone else's money, there's a mandate, right? And there's a time frame where you must return.
Yep.
And so for those guys, you're like, well, you need to burn money. There's no such thing as profit or dividends. But for the founders of the bootstrap businesses, which I have absolute respect for, that choose control over incessant growth, they're the ones to say, what does success look like for you? Is it, I want to be able to take $1 million of free cash flow every year. Okay, let's redesign or backstop what that looks like for you as a business owner.
Let's talk about that, because you and I share a view on this around, you know, it shouldn't be the goal of every SME, or in my opinion, very few SMEs, to scale to $1 billion. I mean, you can be very happy and healthy and wealthy on, you know, a small to medium-sized business. Talk to us about your views on that.
So my personal view is that there's only a certain type of business model that should be scaled, right? And what that business model looks like is your platform plays, or as a software play where there's you've got a product to sell, which is not people, right? It's a product is an intangible asset, which has a low volume of fixed of variable costs, and you can scale that to a global market. Their type of business models are right for scaling. You can't scale, I don't think you should scale your personal fitness or personal training business, because it's hard to scale service-based businesses, because your fixed costs grow as your revenue grows. And so if the revenue tapers off, you're left with all these costs stuck with costs and the cash flow going out the door. We've seen a lot of examples of companies failing. They've tried to scale too big, but I don't think the right business model to scale. Appster is one of them, in my view.
How do you reconcile that with, let's say, large advertising agencies like Saatchi & Saatchi, who have been able to scale a people-based business? What do you think, what are some of the key fundamentals that they've gotten right?
So I think all Big Four accounting firms are that same thing. What they've designed is I won't say Ponzi scheme, but like a large business where the decision makers at the top have built a brand where the partners of these firms, or the creative directors, are essentially the business themselves. So all the goodwill, all the risk is with that person. The challenge with those businesses is that person leaves and decides to set up their own consultancy. Well, their clients follow that person, and all the goodwill in the business is gone with them.
What is the revenue bracket, 2, 5, 10 million, that you see businesses get the most stuck?
For high growth businesses, I usually see a barrier between 3 and 5 mil. And usually what's happened is the founder has run their business like this forever, and they've grown to a stage where they've hit a ceiling. And what they did for 3 to 5 years to get to that stage will not get them to the 10 million, if they want to, right? And what changes is that they need to be more disciplined and pay attention to numbers, which is one of the key things that we try to educate people on the financial literacy journey of, you need to start understanding the unit economics of your business. If they decide to go down that path, because again, some people are happy with the 5 mil revenue with a 20% profit margin, which is a good business.
I'm smiling because our views on this are almost identical, and we met for the first time on the show last week, but other than that we haven't spoken before. You know, in my view, in the beginning the first few years, let's say between 1 and 0 and a million or 0 and 3, what drives a business is entrepreneurial hustle and improvisation and make it up as you go along and break through brick walls. And you get to a point where, sure, you want to keep that entrepreneurial dynamism, but you need to round it out with business fundamentals, capabilities, know your numbers. Can you talk to us about that dynamic of what got you to where you are, let's say at the 3 million mark, isn't going to get you to where you want to be?
So the most important thing that I see is, particularly for service-based businesses, as you get to a certain threshold, you have more people, right? So you start to get a bigger team, and with more people, you need to start inserting layers of management. And the management layers cost money, right? You've suddenly got these C-suite executives who might be on a couple $100K a year, who are not directly attributable to bringing in revenue, bringing the dollars into your business. And so you suddenly need to be starting to exponentially grow your sales to cover the ROI on that extra layer of cost. And that's a big jump for a lot of businesses, and there's a big investment to hire and find those people. And if you're not going to go big, you shouldn't go at all, because there's no halfway line. You're essentially just breaking even on growth for no real reason.
Couldn't agree more. Quickly, what are some of the best examples you've seen of Australian businesses scaling?
So one of the businesses that we work closely with is Who Gives a Crap. So I'm sure you're familiar with the toilet paper guys. So Simon Griffiths, hey mate, they're a fantastic business because I think that number one, they're doing great work for the world. They're a social enterprise. But what I love about their business, they're selling a product, right? And that product is a consumable good, which is certainly a scalable thing. Everyone needs toilet paper, right? Contrast that to an accounting business. I don't think certain accounting firms should scale globally because they don't need to. Or why should they? So, yeah, Who Gives a Crap? Perfect example of a great scaling business. We
spoke before about getting to the 3 million mark, and it then becomes about, you know, there needs to be an underpinning of infrastructure, process, operations, management, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you encourage a founder, CEO type person to bring on a general manager or even replace themselves as CEO with someone who's got a little bit more operational depth?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So I think we need to understand the difference between an entrepreneur and a CEO.
Yes.
So at a lot of the time that we hear, well, you're the founder and the CEO of your own company, but to me, an entrepreneur builds assets, right? Their sole focus is to build a brand or an asset or a service, and then hire people to scale themselves out of that business where they can remove themselves, make themselves redundant. The challenge is that the skill set the CEO needs to then run that business and continue to sustain is a very different skill set to growing and hustling and getting sales in the door. So it's a very different skill set, and I think that the entrepreneur needs to decide, hey, am I not the right person? The self-awareness is, hey, I'm not it, I'm going to bring someone in externally, or skill themselves up and, you know, and do all the work to become a CEO.
Jason, Andrew, I'm thoroughly enjoying our conversations. Thank you for coming back for the second week in a row for Entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much, Jack.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're talking with Justin Dry, the founder of one of Australia's most successful growth stories, Vino Mofo.
You're watching Entrepreneurs. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs.
Welcome back to Entrepreneurs. Tonight we welcome Justin Dry, co-founder of the online wine brand Vino Mofo, back to Entrepreneurs. We spoke to Justin about his entrepreneurial journey a year ago, and tonight he returns to share his insights on scaling a global business. First, a quick recap. Justin launched the business in 2011. It was profitable from the outset and quickly went on to become a multi-million-dollar business. There have been many ups and downs, which Justin has been refreshingly honest about right throughout the journey. Today, Vino Mofo are delivering $50 million in revenue and then some, and they have taken the business into New Zealand, Singapore, and shortly the US. This year they did a reverse play and became omni-channel, heading from online into bricks and mortar. Here to discuss the entire journey, we're joined by Justin Dry in studio. Justin, thank you so much for joining us on Entrepreneurs.
Thank you for having me, buddy.
Now, you are doing $50 million revenue. Talk to us about what that's like and how it's different from when you started out in a garage with nothing.
It's pretty different. The numbers are bigger. It's a little bit scarier, but at least there's money to pay the bills.
Yes.
I don't know. Things change. Scale changes. People, everything changes. You know, you've got to grow. As you know, as an entrepreneur, every single level up you go.
Has your identity, because starting in 2011, that's quick growth. Has your identity and how you see yourself and how you see the business kept up with the growth of the organisation?
Look, I think you always challenge yourself as to how good you are at what you do, and I think your role changes so much over time. You know, when you're 2 people in a garage, it's very different to 120 people that expect certain, you know, traits from a leader and certain skill sets. And so I think knowing or understanding what you need to be at each stage is really bloody important.
How have you done that along the way? Because as you say, being a CEO of a business doing $500,000 is very different from being a business of 10 million or 20 million or even 50 million. How have you levelled up from a capability and a skill set perspective at each step of the way?
It's really funny because I think there's this perception from people when they start that that I think, you know, it gets easier at some point. You know, like, I'm going to hit this point and it's just going to be easier. But I'm here to tell you, it doesn't. It gets bloody harder. It gets harder because you have to keep going. You know, people have to step out of their comfort zones and do scary things early. You have to keep doing it, and they just get bigger and scarier. And so I think I've just had to throw myself into it. There was no book I read. There was no particular mentor that gave me that lesson. It was just, oh, wow, I'm not so good at this, and I'm seeing that there's a need for it. Now I need to learn it. I need to be that person. I need to jump. And here I go.
Mate, were there moments or step changes along the journey where you felt, this looks like it's going to become a big success story?
Yes, it was so good. Yeah, it's like, woo! So after, you know, 4 years of doing similar things to eventually launch Vino Mofo, on day 1 we sold more wine on the first day than we'd sold in the previous month in the other business. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool, this is getting exciting. But then we thought, like, oh wow, maybe if have I saturated my entire audience? Is that all they're going to buy? And now that's the end of the journey. And then on day 2 we sold even more. And then on day 3 we sold even more. And every time I was like, have we finished it? And it kept going and going and going. It was so fast. All the metrics were like this.
Wow.
And so from the very start, from day 1 of launch, it went nuts. And I think, so I kind of got really excited early. But then after 4 years of kind of, you know, little bits of success and like getting better, but not quite ever getting there, and then finally you hit this thing. Yeah. And you're like, oh, I just don't stuff it up now. Just don't stuff it up. Hold on. Like, what do we do? Hold on. No one move. So that was probably early for Vino.
Right. And from a structural perspective, how have you seen the organisation change? Or perhaps a better way of putting that question, what needed to change in the organisation from 5 to 20 to 50?
Okay, a couple of things. I think the when you start, you need kind of generalists, and you are a generalist. Yeah. You know, like as a founder, you know, if it's just you or a partner or whatever, you're doing everything. You're doing the books, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the copy, you're doing the design, you're doing the website, you know, like all those things. And you have to be really good at a lot of things, or average at a lot of things, but, you know, comparatively, but you have to do everything. And then as you grow, you need more generalists to help you because it's all hands on deck. You need to do so much stuff, but so everyone needs to be able to do a little bit of everything. And then as you get further and further and further, you start needing specialists. So over that journey, the right people is all about the right time, and that changes, and which leads to some pretty difficult conversations and expectations. And so that's probably one of the hardest things as well to kind of navigate is, oh wow, our middle core family of generalists, we're going to need some specialists. Where does that leave everyone? And that's an awful place to be sometimes. And sometimes you can find those places. Can
lend itself to some really tricky conversations. One of the things I love about Vino Mofo is the brand you guys have built, the brand you guys have scaled. How did you scale that brand in such a way that didn't just maintain consumer loyalty, but actually built it and amplified it as you grew?
Yeah, I think we started the business because there was a need for it, you know, and we built it for ourselves, basically. I was a wine nerd. I'd ancestor planted some of the first vines in the Barossa. My uncles would make me do blind tastings when I was like, you know, too young to even drink. And then I went and studied at uni, and I worked in the industry. So I was a complete wine nerd by the time I was 25. You know, and then you've got, and so you know, I was super interested in really interesting wines. And I think there was just a lot of bow ties and BS, and a lot of intimidation from like the wine snobs. And me being a 25-year-old, I was feeling intimidated, and I was like, this is BS. And so we need to get rid of this bow ties BS, because imagine if I'm feeling that way, imagine how everyone else feels, you know, like who hasn't had the experience with wine. So I was like, so it came from a real need, it came from a personal experience, and we just built it in a way that was us, the way we talked, the way we thought, and it was very, to use the word that's become so popular, like authentic. But you know what, if you have to think and design authenticity, it's not very authentic. Yeah. And so we built it around ourselves, and that's how it happened. And so then our brand, tone, voice followed through from there. And we just stayed true.
Justin, one of the things I love about you is you're not only an incredibly capable entrepreneur, you're also really good at communicating, you know, strategies and tactics to other entrepreneurs. So that being said, what are your top 2 tips for scaling a business in 2019?
Scaling a business in 2019, well, globally, because we're just going through that process.
Yeah.
Know your market. Like, have someone who knows the market really, really well. Yeah. And I think it's really important, because we went into New Zealand and then Singapore, and each market is very different. So I think you would be miles ahead if you had someone on the ground, like a country lead or someone local to take up the reins, and because like that knowledge will save you so much time. Absolutely. And you know, we made a lot of mistakes along our path, and I think we would have kind of leapfrogged a lot of those had we had someone on the ground who knew exactly what they were doing in that market. The second thing I would say in the same sense is they're all really different. Like, you think that New Zealand, it's pretty close, and it's, you know, I've met a lot of Kiwis and they're good guys, and you know, and you think it's going to be normal and easy and similar, but it's really different. And then you go to Singapore, and you know, we've all travelled there and had lots of fun and experienced the food and wine scene. You're like, no, I get it. And then you go there and it's completely different. So be ready. So get someone who really knows it, and then be ready for change, because you're going to have to adapt, because it's never ever like what you thought it was going to be.
Absolutely love it. Justin Dry, founder and CEO of Vino Mofo, thank you so much for coming to Entrepreneurs.
Thank you for having me, legend.
We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we talk to award-winning accountant and serial entrepreneur Tanya Titman for an insider's look at scaling a business globally.
You're watching Entrepreneurs. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs.
Welcome back to Entrepreneurs. Now, Tanya Titman has been a regular on this show, talking to us about how businesses can manage their finances. But today she is discussing her own entrepreneurial journey, having just merged her national accounting business Consolidate with global accounting business BDO. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jack. Great to speak to you again.
Congratulations on today. Tell us a little bit about the merger.
Yeah, look, a really exciting opportunity. Just announced that Consolidate has merged with BDO. This just represents such a great opportunity for us to continue to expand the Consolidate brand, to continue our focus on innovation, and to take that to a larger group. So myself and the team are just extremely excited about the future, and Consolidate and accelerate, seeing where we go.
Well done, Tanya. It's something that most entrepreneurs dream of. How do you feel right now, having recently completed this deal?
Yeah, it's certainly been many months in the making, and you know, I refer to it as quite an organic process that we went through. It was really something that we took the time to understand the culture and the fit and make sure that we were all aligned with the people, and it's really been quite a rewarding experience. I think certainly there was no, I guess, no anxiety about the merge. We were very much involving the team throughout the whole journey. So when we finally came to the point of being able to announce it to the market, it's certainly everyone's on board and very excited about the future.
And very rightly so. Tanya, let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. Why did you start the business, and what have been some of the exciting growth milestones along the way?
Yeah, look, I think for me, I was really driven to make a difference in our industry. When I started the business, I wanted to do things differently. I really wanted to make a difference to the lives of our clients, and I truly believe that as accountants we've got the power of the numbers and that understanding and the ability to do so. So I guess that was the drive that started me on this journey that I'm on. Along the way, there's just been so many rewarding moments, and when I think back, probably in 2016, that year we won a lot of awards and we had a really wonderful year. And in reflecting back, it was really quite one of those moments where I look back and I went, that vision that I started with when I started this business, we did it. We were there, and that was something that it wasn't like I had it on a whiteboard somewhere, and I plastered it and looked at it every day. But to get to the end, of that year and look back, it was a really rewarding moment. And probably the other thing for me is just seeing the growth in the people along the journey, because my business is really a product of some amazing people, and to have been a part of their journey and to sort of see them grow in their leadership styles and and being empowered along the way, that's certainly been something that's been extremely rewarding for me.
Tanya, scaling an accounting business is very different to scaling a tech business or a product-based business. Talk to us about what were some of those key differences through the growth journey for you.
Yeah, I don't think it's all that different. In my world, when I set out to build this business, I wanted to do it differently. So I totally agree that an accounting practice is not something that in a traditional sense can be scaled, but I suppose I really recognised that, I understood that, and I didn't want to go down that path. So when I built this business, I looked at many other businesses and I built it from scale from day one. And that's something that I did quite differently. I had a very big vision. I remember in the early days there were software providers that came along and I was putting in platforms that were meant for much bigger businesses, and they would come and say to me, "You don't need this, you're too small." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to stay small for long." So it was one of those things that right from the beginning I put the structure and the foundations in place to grow this business in a non-traditional sense, and probably taking a number of lessons out of the books of tech companies and how they scaled. So I think that when you think outside of the box, that you can actually build a service-based business for scale.
It's a very refreshing message. Tanya, putting your accountancy hat on for a moment, what are the common or most common mistakes you see SMEs making today? Where do they go wrong?
Yeah, look, I see a lot of businesses that grow broke. I see a lot of businesses that grow without any sense of why they're growing. We come across businesses that have no strategy. So, in building a business and growing a business, I think it is so critical to have a clear strategy and to execute on that strategy, and also to understand that in growing a business, you're going to require funding. Businesses don't grow and become successful by mistake, and usually there's a very careful and considered strategy behind them. So when a business goes into this phase of growth and does it without the foresight of what it's actually going to require from a funding point of view, that's when we see the wheels start to fall off. So that's the critical thing for me, is have a strategy and make sure you understand what that strategy is going to require in terms of funding requirements.
Tanya, just quickly, with the 20 seconds we have left, you've got a special focus on female entrepreneurs, which is incredibly interesting. Yeah. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, look, I'm really passionate about women in business, and I think that for women, they tend to have a mindset that holds them back, and so being able to push through that and get them to think beyond what they actually think may be possible is something that I love to do. And I think women have this extra challenge of mother guilt often, and trying to balance that with their passion for a business. So there are some unique things for women, and I love to share my journey and to really empower them and inspire them to think big and to really take their businesses to the next level.
And what a journey it has been. Tanya Tittman, founder of Consolidate, well done on the merger. We are cheering you on. Thank you so much for joining us on Entrepreneurs.
Thanks so much, Jack.
Thank you very much. That is all we have time for tonight. Next week on Valentine's Day, we have a special Valentine's Day edition. We'll go beyond the roses and the romance, and we'll look at the business of love and sex tech. A reminder, you can watch us anytime on Foxtel Go and on the catch-up section of yourmoney.com.au. I'm Jack Delosa. Good night.